Hi, I'm Robert Joseph, and in this video I'm going to show you how to change out the feet on this Brother sewing machine LX3817. So this is part of a whole playlist, so if you're coming into this video, know that there are about 3 or 4 other videos before we get to this video. And basically they're all about how to use this sewing machine in terms of the different stitches it has and the capabilities that that it has for you to use. So I have all the feet here. They're in this plastic bag and I keep them all here. You don't want to lose any of these. So after I show you how you're going to change each of the feet, where I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about the information that is on the throat plate here, because you will need to know some of that for your sewing. Now be advised, in that part of the video I'm probably going to be holding the camera, so it might be a little bit shaky, and the reason for that is because with my tripod I can't get in here in such a way that you can actually see everything well enough. So I may be just kind of putting my hand in there with my camera so you can see where the markings are that I'm talking about. Okay, so now that I've talked to you about what I'm going to do, let's actually get into doing it. Okay, so before we get into threading the machine and changing the needle, I just want to be very clear about the feet and how to attach them and take them off and everything. So the things that you need to be worried about is this is our regular foot, and I'll show you a closer view of that later. And then this one again is the zipper foot. This one is our button attacher. This one is for making buttonholes. And then this one is the darning plate, which will actually be used in conjunction with the button attacher foot. So I'm going to show you how to put these onto the machine. So before we do that, I want to be very clear about the presser foot. This whole thing, this is called the presser foot, and underneath it are feed dogs. And we lower the presser foot onto the feed dogs, and the feed dogs pull the fabric through the machine. So we lower it and raise it from a lever back here. And I'm going to take the camera off the tripod, so I apologize for the shakiness for the time being. Okay, so right back here, let me see, I don't have my pointer. I'm going to have to find my pointer. Hang on. Okay, so I got my pointer, and right here, this is our lever. And I probably could have made it a different color so it would be kind of obvious. So when we push this up, it's up in the up position now. But if I reach back here and I pull it down, it puts the presser foot down. It's hard to see on the camera, right? Up, down. So I'm going to turn the machine around so you can actually see what's going on behind it. So turn this around. I should have unplugged it. Okay. So right here, this is that lever. So up raises the foot. You see that all in one action. And then down puts it down. Okay. So I'm going to leave it up, and I'm going to turn the machine back around. And again, I probably should have unplugged the machine before I did this, but oh well, moving on. Okay, so now I actually already have the needle in here, and that's fine. It won't pose any problem. So we need to replace these feet because we have 3 or 4 different feet on, and you can buy more feet as well. So basically all you need to do is, I would do it on both sides of the foot. Just pull down, just grab onto the foot and then pull down, and it pops right off. Okay, so this is our regular sewing foot. Now you can buy different regular sewing feet. They call this the J foot. In there you can kind of see the letter J, and that's how it's listed in your manual. Now when I keep talking about the notch that's on the foot, it's this little notch right there. You can kind of see it in the light. It reflects a little bit. That's the center of the foot, and that's where the center needle position is. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on because we just basically snap it back on, but I want to show you here what I'm talking about, the feed dogs. So I'm going to take the phone off so we can get it closer look-see here. So I'm going to hold this. Let me see if I can hold this. So these here, these rough things here are called feed dogs, and they move, and inside is kind of a circular motion, but they go down and up and they pull the fabric through underneath the presser foot. So I'm going to use the hand wheel and turn them so you can see them work. Okay, the needle goes down and the feed dogs come up and they slightly pull the fabric down depending on your stitch length. Really long stitch length and it will pull the fabric more. All right, so that's how the feed dogs work. I'm going to leave that needle all the way up. And I get this back on the tripod and positioned up here. Okay, so now to get this foot back on, I'm going to do all of the feet so you can see everything work. Basically, I'm just going to center this underneath the foot bar, and you can kind of see, probably should turn the machine to the side. I'm going to unplug the machine. So if you, there we go. So that I can turn it around a lot easier. So I'm turning this around to the side. You can see the side here where this little notch is. And that is where the bar, this bar here, goes in, that attaches. And I just kind of, if I center it there, like where the bar is and where the little cutout part is, and then I lower the shank, well, not really centered. Center that a little bit better. And then I lower the presser foot, and it's still not centered. I can't see, my eyes can't see very well. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. If I lower that and it's still not centered. If I were doing this from the front, it would be easier for me to see. My eyes are a little wonky, right? So it's down there, and if I push down, it will clip right on and grab onto that foot. All right, so down and up. So I'll turn the machine back around so I can pop it off. And the reason I'm doing it with both of my both sides is because this is plastic. No, I'm not pointing at the needle. This part that is being clipped into is plastic. So if you just pull it out by one side, you may actually rip or break the plastic here, and then you have to buy another one of these shanks. So just be careful when you're pulling it off and putting it back on. So I'm kind of centering it there, and as this comes down, it will clip right on. Okay, so let's put the next one on. So the zipper foot. So this zipper foot has two sides. It's hard to see because it's clear. There is here on the right side, we can clip it onto the right side if we want the needle to go down on this side, or we can clip it onto the left side and have the needle on this side. Once we get to, I remember I'm going to do practicals with the these feet. So I'm going to put a couple of, I think I'm going to do 3 zippers with this foot. So again, just center up to where on the bar you want this to be, and it will clip right on. And so now if I move the needle, I know that's hard to see, right? So now it will sew on the right side of the foot. So I'm going to bring that needle back up, clip, put that down, and then I'm going to move it over so the needle is on the left side. Okay. So depending on if maybe you have an invisible zipper and you want to sew in the same direction, then you would need to switch this side to side. Okay, so I'm going to undo this one, undo that one, and then this buttonhole one, this is not the buttonhole, I'm sorry, this is for the button attacher. The blue part goes toward you, so, and this curly Q part goes toward the back, and that's to make sure that everything gets in alignment correctly. So just center that, and it clips right on just like that. And again, I'm going to show you how to attach a button with this, and you will never hand sew a button on again. Okay, and so this is our buttonholer foot, and the A goes toward the back. So I'm just going to make sure that's in the back, and then I can clamp this on anywhere the bar is. So I'm going to lift it up, and then I start at the top of the buttonhole, and as we sew, this will move up, and as soon as we see the bottom of the buttonhole, I'm going to show you how to draw those out, it will stop, and we will stop, and then we will come back up to the top of the buttonhole and we will stop. So that's how this buttonhole attachment works, okay? I'm going to take this one off. Okay, so the last attachment, which is actually not a foot, it's actually this darning plate, and what it does is it covers the feed dogs here from moving the fabric forward, and this is used in conjunction with the button attacher. And so I should have showed both of these at the same time, but I wanted to get through the feet. I'll put this on after we get the darning plate on. Okay, so this goes on basically right over on top of these feed dogs. And if we look at it, which I know it's hard to see, we want to make sure that these shapes here for the machine and both for the darning plate look similar, going the same direction. It's kind of a slight sad face. But anyway, that's what we're covering because we need the needle to go into that hole. But if you turn the darning plate over, it has these two prongs here. And these two prongs line up with these two little holes here in the front. So what we want to do is line up the two holes as long as the shapes match up and kind of slide this back, and you'll feel something just kind of go down. It went down on this side because that prong here, can you see it went right into that hole there? If I can find that again. Okay, and then I'll need to like move this side around. I'm holding on to move this side around until I fill that hole, and then it just snaps right down into place. So once you do this a couple of times, you'll understand how you feel around for those little holes for the prongs to go into. And then I'm going to turn the hand wheel so you can see the needle go down. And I've got this in the center, so the needle goes right down, and the feed dogs will not be moving the fabric. So I'm going to keep that needle in the top position. So now, if I bring in the button attacher, then what I can do is I can put this on just like I did before, but you'll notice that if I push this back, the shank here is stopping this. So what you need to do is up here, where is my finger? I don't see it. Up here, I'm gonna move the camera up a little bit so you can see the, you can't really see it, but it's this knob that raises and lowers the presser foot. You'll need to just kind of push that up a little bit more. Now, it's hard to tell, but once I get into the actual tutorial for buttons, for attaching buttons, you will need to lift this up and you'll see the shank move up. It doesn't stay up there, so if you let go, it goes back down. You'll need to press it up and then move the foot back. And then it doesn't click in, so you'll have to take your finger on the lever that raises and lower and press it down. You heard that big click? That means it's clicked on there. Not only is it clicked on there, but the presser foot is completely down. So I'm going to raise this. So I'm just raising it until it's clicking up in the upright position. And you'll notice that there's not a lot of clearance here. In fact, I'm going to bring in some fabric. So this clearance, it barely allows the fabric to go in there. So when we put the buttons on here to attach them, we will actually have to take our finger and press the raise and lower lever, raise and lower lever to push it up to actually get those buttons under here to create more clearance. But what you have to remember is that when you let go of that, it doesn't actually depress or lower the presser foot. You actually have to lower it again so that the fabric doesn't move around. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to explain that. So that is how the darning plate goes on, and in conjunction with the button attaching foot. Okay. Okay, so we were just looking at the button attacher and darning plate that was on here, and I've removed everything. There's no feet on here right now. It's just the shank and the needle. And now I want to talk about some of the information that is here on the throat plate. And some of it can be kind of confusing, but it's all designed and meant to help you. with your sewing. So first off, I'm going to have to remove the camera from the tripod to kind of get in here to show you some of the markings that are on here. And the markings that are on here are a set of lines and numbers. And I just kind of want to point out and let you know that this machine I bought in the US. And in the US, we use the imperial system of measurement, and that is inches. Everywhere else in the world, pretty much, uses the metric system, which is basically, millimeters, centimeters, etc. So here in the front here, you'll notice these lines and numbers. These are all here in millimeter. So, and you can't actually see these on the bobbin case plate cover. I'm going to pull that off so we can kind of look at that, see if you can see these numbers a little bit better. That's probably not any better. I don't know. So I have 10, it says 10, and then it says 15. And those are in millimeters. And then up here, you can barely see it. I mean, I didn't catch this at the start of this when I started working with these videos, is that right here, it says 1/4, and the line here, I can bring in my pointer, the line here would be your 1/4 measurement line, okay? Now, honestly, I kind of like to call out brother right now because I can hardly see these. I mean, and I wear glasses to read. So even if I were paying attention, it would be so hard for me to see any of this. So I'm not sure that this is really helpful, although it is nice to know where the 1/4 inch mark. And what the 1/4 inch mark, because I'm in the US, and I do use the imperial system, is 1/4 inch from the needle. All right? So I'm going to put this back on. See if I can get this back on quickly. So let me put the needle down. Oh, I need to focus. Whoop. I'm going to put the needle down, and then I'm going to take my ruler, and we'll be seeing this. And this is a see-through ruler that I've used, and I put tape on it so I can see the measurements better. So if I line this up with the needle, and then I line that up with the 1/4 mark, it will be 1/4 from the needle is where that line is. But I mean, if I'm looking at this while I'm sewing, first of all, I mean, I'm going to have fabric in here. And even if I had the machine, I know I have lights on. Let me bring that needle back up. Okay, this is the 1/4 mark. I really can't see that. I mean, just looking at it from here, it's hard to tell that it's there. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. But if you use millimeters, your 10 millimeters is over here, and that's approximately 3/8 of an inch, which is pretty common in other countries. We use it here in the US too, and whenever I do swimwear, I use 3/8 inch wide elastic. And we use that for knits too in production. The seam allowances on the patterns will be 3/8, but the factory's cut off an 1/8, so it's a finished 1/4 inch seam allowance. But it's hard to see the 10 and the 15, so you would need to mark it. And then over here we have 25 and 30, which is kind of obvious. We can actually see it here better. 25 and 30 millimeters, which is lining up to the 1 inch and about the 1/8 inch. And I'll show you where those are. But in the US, we predominantly use the inches or the imperial system. So, and where are those markings other than the 1/4? So I have to take the camera off of the tripod to show you where those are. And I got to scoot this back a little bit. So I'm going to take this off. So kind of coming back here. Sorry that this is kind of wonky. Let me see if I can get this to focus. Okay, back here, I'll see if I can use my marker. Right here we have each of these shorter distance lines, and the increments here is 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so remember down here, that'll focus. This line here, which you can barely see, is the 1/4 inch line. Now if I go up here to this next line here on the metal plate, it's 3/8. And then next to that is the 1/2 inch line. and then I have 5/8 here, which is predominant in the big company pattern makers patterns. And then next to that is the 3/4 line. And I think I need to focus again. That's the 3/4 line right here. And then a 1/4 inch past that is the 1 inch mark. And then each of these lines after that will be a 1 inch. Now, if you're a quilter, you're going to be wanting to use this line because in quilting, I don't want to say we because I'm technically really not a quilter, but I know that quilting uses a lot of 1/4 inch seam allowances. So you're probably going to want to mark that. If you are in the US and you use a lot of commercial patterns from the big pattern companies like McCall's and Butterick or Vogue, you're going to want to mark off your 5/8 inch line. And what I do, let me put this back on the tripod. Okay, and focus. What I do is I have style tape. So being a designer, I use this on my dress forms for draping. And what I would do is I would take this tape and find out where the 1/4 inch, like if this is the 1/4 inch, tape that down. And then of course I would cut it off here. That would be the 1/4 inch. So after I kind of get it kind of tacked on there, then I would just kind of rip the tape off here and here. Whoops, sorry about that. And put this cover back on, and then that would be how I would follow the line for the 1/4 inch. If I were using a lot of store-bought patterns, I would find the 5/8, which is right here. And actually, I would probably put this on every time, or you could kind of just mark it with a pen on the plastic for the 5/8. So that's my 5/8 mark. And let me put this foot on so you can kind of get a better idea. Okay, so when you're sewing, this foot, I'm not crazy about this foot now because the challenge here is, let me put this up, is that if I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam, okay, this is where I need to guide the fabric, which is kind of weird. It's because it's so close to the edge of the foot, it might be difficult to control. Once the fabric goes under here, it's there's pressure being put on it, so it's probably going to want to veer away from you. So you're going to have to really steer the fabric. Whereas, and then the 5/8 line is here, right? That will be okay, but you'll need to know where that is. So it would have been nicer if they would have had a presser foot where from this notch to the edge would have been a 1/4 inch, like actually a lot of industrial sewing machines are. So now if you're using patterns from an independent, I'm trying to get this needle back up, sorry. So if you're using patterns from an independent company, like I sell sewing patterns online, you'll have to check their patterns for what their seam allowance is with knits and for wovens. Like for instance, my knit patterns predominantly use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that's because generally a serger stitch without cutting anything off is a 1/4 inch. But when I do wovens, I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I would actually need to move the tape here to use those patterns, okay? So just be aware of that. Now, the other thing that kind of bugs me, not just, I guess it just bugs me generally about home sewing machine manufacturers, I took that off because I wanted to take this tape off, is that the markings for those seam allowances, well, I wanted to show you, are way back here, okay? They're after the fact that you've actually sewn, right? I mean, if I'm sewing like this, if I'm looking back here, it's like, oh, I need to make 3/8 here. I know this is a gross exaggeration, but if I'm stitching there and I've got 3/8 and I'm looking back here and I'm not paying attention to what's going up here, I'm thinking that I'm getting a 3/8 seam or a 1/4 inch seam when in fact I'm getting a much larger seam, and that will affect your fit. So if there is someone from the sewing machine manufacturers, please put the measurements for the seam allowance here in front of the needle, not behind the needle. That's where we actually need it. So if you're watching this video, my suggestion would be to find little tapes to put on here, on the plastic part, to actually mark off where your seam allowances are, just because you need to know what those seam allowances are before you get to the needle, because the needle actually dictates what your seam allowance is. Okay, so now you know how to switch out the feet for this machine, and you know a little bit more about the information that is here on the throat plate of the machine. I will let you know that during the sampling of the stitches that is coming up, there is one of those feet that we switched out that I don't use in the samples videos, and that is the zipper foot. So there is no particular stitch except for the straight stitches that is used with the zipper foot. I do allude to the fact that number 11 may be used with the zipper foot, and you kind of can't see that because it's clear. But I'm going to do a separate video using this foot by installing a railroad zipper. And so we will use the zipper foot for that, and we will see if we really need to use the number 11 stitch, or if we can use some of the other 6 through 10 stitches. So just be looking out for that. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button, and you will be notified of any new videos that I upload. Again, thank you so much for watching, and be well.